morning, everybody. Good morning, it's afternoon. How many of you was influenced by the earthquake in 2010? Who was stuck at the airport somewhere? Can you see the hand? I can see some hands. Yeah, there are some hands here. Oh, we are very sorry about that. We apologize. But while some of you at least, or someone you know, was sitting on an airport swearing that those Icelandic people are interrupting with our travel plans, we had people living in an environment that when they went out of their houses, they could not see their hand if they stretched it out because of the asphalt. That was the reality that we were dealing with in 2010. I sometimes wonder why people come to Iceland, because we have all the risks that is. If you go around the world and ask people what are the natural hazards, what are the the risks that you have from nature, what is it? And they will pinpoint one or two. And we can show, we have that one also. So we have them all, we kind of say. So I sometimes wonder why you're here. But that's also the reason why people come to Iceland, because this nature and this disasters that we have, they shape our landscape and they make our country as beautiful as it is, and they also shape the people that live in, and I think that also make the people interesting. Our philosophy in emergency management in Iceland is based on this circle that you see here. It's called the crisis circle, or emergency management cycle of disasters. So we kind of look in what can happen, what is the risk, what can we do something to reduce the risk, and then we go on to make our plans to be ready to deal with it when it happens. And we have learned in the later years that we also have to be prepared for the rebuilding phase after the disasters, so we can get our society back and be as strong as it was. And we had that little discussion in the green room before that with all disasters, with all crises comes opportunity. We saw the opportunity that about the green cloud that was talked here earlier. That's opportunity that was made by the economical disasters. We also think when you have a disaster, you will always have victims of that disaster, and the solutions for the victims is based on the sector responsibility that lies in our society. So, for example, just few of them. This is more of what we call the blue light sectors. We have those agencies. We have these people there that are going to stand up and deal with a disaster, so the victim can be saved, or at least in as little harm as possible. On a daily basis, we are dealing with small disasters every day. We have our traffic accidents and so on and so forth. So those agencies, they're used to work together, some of them. So the police work a lot with the ambulance service and the fire brigades and so on. But when we come to a major disaster, we have to have some kind of umbrella that brings everybody together, and that's kind of the thing that I do. And I've been doing this my whole life. You saw the picture from the volcano in Westman Islands here earlier with Magapala. I was born there. I was 5 years old when that eruption started, and I still remember it very clearly when my mother woke me up during that night of January 23rd in 1973 and said, there is an eruption started in our village, on our island, and we have to leave. Probably I didn't understand what she was talking about, but this is a kind of a picture that I really, really remember. So from that, it's kind of been my faith to work in this. And like you said, it's my hobby also, and it's something I do all the time. But when we are working with disaster, we have to remember that the solution for the victim must be a straight line. It cannot be up and down depending on culture within those different agencies that are part of the solution. They may not become part of the problem. So that calls upon that their interoperability must be very good, and that's what we can do by training, by using our experience to deal with it. And I think we've been pretty good doing that for the last years. And so that kind of made me wonder when I'm thinking about the economical crisis. Why didn't we use the same methods to deal with that crisis than we did dealing with the eruption and the earthquakes that we had for the last years? So preparedness, response, and recovery must always be what we think about. So in April 2010, we had this eruption going on in Iceland, and immediately when we found out that people were in need, people were suffering, the nation stood up as a one. We Icelanders, we really, when someone is in trouble, have trouble, we really stick together. So all our scientists, all our rescue teams, Red Cross people, everybody who could assist came forward and said, there's something here that I can do. And we had people meeting. You see this monster that we're dealing with. This is the volcano. We had people coming together, the politicians, people from the communities, everybody was there to do whatever we could do to reduce the suffering of the people that needed assistance. And this came 2 years after that we had the economical crisis here. So most of the people that were suffering because of the volcano had been suffering for a long time because of the changes in the economy. The farm area did also participate in the golden years. A lot of the farmers took loans in foreign currency to renew their equipment, to make their farmers even bigger. And then they had the ash pouring down like from a shower. So, but I think we were really good in getting people together and realize that together we can be strong and we can be resilient if we look at it in that way. But again, because we think about what is talked about, the all-hazard approach, if I sometimes wonder how we would have managed during the economical crisis if we would have figured out how to work together for the solution. But when you have something that's made by man, it's easier to point at someone. This is your fault. This is why it's your fault that we're in this situation. But nobody's going to point on the volcano and say, you volcano, it's your fault that we're in this situation. So this is kind of about how it was. And a little bit a story of so we had a crisis within the crisis, the economical crisis. We had the eruption. And then on a personal note, we had another crisis within that crisis within the crisis, is that when the airspace of Europe started to shut down, I kind of mentioned in the beginning, dealing with disaster in Iceland is something I've done for many, many years, and dealing with the media is part of that. And people say when they see me in television, well, they say, well, now something's gone wrong when he's there. But so it was nothing new. But in the morning of April the 15th, 2010, I showed up in our coordination center after about 2 hours of sleep. And the first phone call I took when I got there at 5 in the morning was from the Turkish television. Okay, they asked me to go live on an interview via the phone, and that was no problem. I did that. Soon as I hang up, the Israeli television called. And then it was CNN, BBC. And then about 5 hours, I think I talked to all of the big media. And I thought, well, what is really going on? We are dealing with a disaster that affecting about 80 farms in Iceland, and the whole world is going bananas. But then I heard the airspace of Europe is closing down. So everybody is looking at Iceland. So people are screaming at us, you have to put out the fire, you have to do something. There must be something that you can do. I'll tell you this, I even got an email from company that's they work to put out fires in coal mines, and they called us and say, "I'm sure that we can come to you and we can put out this fire." But one of the pitfalls that emergency managers like myself and maybe some of my colleagues that are in here, we kind of we fall into every time. That's you know the frog syndrome. If you take a frog and try to put it in boiling water, he'll just jump out and be safe. But if you put him in a cold water and slowly heat it up, he'll just lie there and be comfy and cozy until he boils and he'll die. And that's frequently happening when you're dealing with disasters. Even you think there's something that I can deal with this. And that was how I was feeling on the 15th of April. This is something I can deal with. This is I've been trained for, I know what I'm doing. But then this European airspace stuff came in and I kind of boiled and died. So I thought this was the media. They were going to eat me up. But we decided not to let them eat us up. So we gathered a group of people, experienced people. We used the people that have been dealing with media through the economical crisis, asked them to assist us to deal with this, and we could go through that. So when you have crisis, you will also have communication crisis. My last one is just a thought that we've been thinking about here in Iceland, and I know my colleagues in Japan and colleagues in New Zealand has been thinking about the same after the disaster they had for the last years. Have we really thought about the worst case scenario? What is going to be our black swan? Do we rely too much on technology when we're dealing with crisis communication? Everybody is using Facebook, Twitter, and that, but is it going to work when you have this worst case scenario? And will everybody use the same method of gathering information? We're again going so much into the technology. And do our plans, do they fit different culture, different way of living, and different social activity of people? And these are the challenging questions I think that we can end this presentation of mine with. Thank you.